There was a bunch of years ago, I was giving a class it was actually on a Pesach program in Hawaii. It's totally not relevant, but I figured you throw it out there and people get excited. But that's where it was in Hawaii. And I was giving a class on the topic of emunah and bitachon. I don't know exactly how to translate that, so I'm going to go with the way they've been translating it in the book Emunah and Bitachon, Faith and Trust. The way that the Chazon Ish writes, for those unfamiliar, there was a great sage by the name of the Chazon Ish. And the Chazon Ish of Avram Yeshaya Korelitz, he wrote a number of writings on Torah. And they wrote a book based off one of his writings. It's fascinating. It's actually his own writings, but if anyone knows a sefer Emunah Bitachon, it's not actually a sefer Emunah Bitachon. It's part of a much greater piece that was pulled out and made into its own sefer. And he writes about the concept of what is Emunah, what's Bitachon. So these are words which are thrown around very freely. You have to have Emunah, you have to have Bitachon. You have to have Emunah while having Bitachon, and Bitachon your Emunah. And make sure that there's Bitachon when you're having Bitachon. Can anyone here help me a little bit and explain some sort of, give me some clarity? What is emunah? What is bitachon? Begin. Precisely. So you see, it's complicated. What exactly does it mean? But the way that the Chazon Ish explains it in a nutshell, I mean, it's a whole book. But he writes essentially, what's emunah? Emunah is the world of theory. Bitachon is the world of practice. That's essentially, break it down. Emunah is in theory, bitachon is in practice. In theory, I believe in God. In theory, I trust God. In theory, I'm living for God. In practice, in theory, I believe in God. Do you ever get what I'm saying? So I'll give you an example, which is a classic example, something known as hasagas gavul. Hasagas gavul is a halacha. There's a halacha that a person is not allowed to be masig the gavul of somebody else. That means you can't come and take over the boundaries and borders of somebody else. So for example, where that comes up commonly is in terms of a person owns a store. You own a store, and that store is a shoe store. You open up a shoe store. Someone else opens a shoe store across the street from you. That is a shaila, it is a question of perhaps you're now being over an isser prohibition of hasagas gvul. I have my company here. You opened up a company across the street from me. What are you doing? Now, in the old country, where I'm from, a place called Woodmere, New York. Has anybody heard of this place before? It's a very far away land, yeah? So in Woodmere, New York, it's like trying to open up a pizza store and then having another pizza store like down the block. But that's not what they do in New York on Central Avenue. It's not down the block, it's next door. And then there's another one and another one and another one and another one. There's like 6 pizza stores, I don't think it's like. There are 6 pizza stores on one block. How is that mutter? How is that okay? The answer is, there's details. How many Jews live in the neighborhood? How many people are going to frequent it? Being that in the 5 towns, there are roughly, I think, about 100 to 150 Jews there. So being per block, per half block, right? There's a million Jews there. So you could have 6 different pizza stores. But imagine you were to go to a place where there's like, it's a million of Jews, and then you open up your store and someone opens the same store across the street from you. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're not just your thing. So what's emunah? Emunah is, I trust God, and I know God knows what's doing, and He's going to take care of me, and everything's going to be good. And hakol mishamayim, everything is from the heavens. Hashem takes care of everything. Rosh Hashanah, the Kotsuv, how much money I'm going to make. I'm sorry, it's not the Gemara Rosh Hashanah. It might also be, but it's in Beitz and Daf Tezayin. Everything is decided. How much money I'm going to make is decided between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I'm going to get what I'm going to get. So you have that guy. He happens to own a shoe store, and he gives a shiur every week about emunah. Trust God. God's going to take care of you. Everything's good. Then somebody opens a store across the street. And he goes, how could he do that? It's usher. He's violating. It's a problem. Hold on one second. Didn't you just give us a shiur last night that you trust that God's going to take care of you? Who cares if the guy opened the store across the street from you? Anybody here? Bitachon would be, not only am I not upset about the fact that he opened the store, I'll send them clients that I don't like in order to go ahead and help them a little bit. What does it make a difference? God's going to take care of me anyway. What does it make a difference? There's a story about Rav Elosam Menachem Shach, and Rav Shach, one time, there was a young lady who came to him, was very upset because she was going to try to get a particular job as a teacher. And when she was trying to get a job as a teacher, it was between her and somebody else, and they ended up, they were leaning towards choosing her as the teacher. Last second decision, they ended up choosing a third party. Someone who wasn't even part of the running. They weren't even in the running. Who was the third party? Who was the other person? The other person was a relative of someone in the school. So they ended up, they weren't even qualified. The whole thing is like, what just happened? Like we're head to head, I get it, you take the other person. Okay, it is what it is. But you're taking this third one, we never even had a school. Like, what's going on? It's a little not fair. She went to tell Rav Shach how she was feeling, and Rav Shach said, you have to understand something. Listen, it's also a Gemara, you should know, what I'm about to quote you. This is a Gemara, and the Rav Shach quoted. He said that nobody can touch your parnasa. Nobody can touch your livelihood. You're going to get what you're going to get. Don't worry, God knows how to take care of things. You don't get it here, you'll get it here. You won't get it there, you'll get it there. Right? It's going to happen. God has a way of taking care of things. I saw a Gemara today that talks about this. So before I ADD myself, I just want to come back to finish the story, then we'll go to there. Just understand, God will take care of it. This is what Rav Shach says. Nepotism, the idea of like having a relative to come or whatever, it's a terrible thing. Because you get people that, it's not fair, I lose out. But you should just know, nobody has the ability to take away what you're supposed to get. Nobody can touch it. Understand the fact that nobody has a way to take away what you're supposed to. You know what else happened to you one time? Nobody took away the deal and you lost money anyway. You know what I'm saying? So yes, there are times when someone takes away the deal, and then there are times when no one took away the deal. Hashem takes care of everything. Hashem's going to work it out like this, he's going to work like that. Understand, Emunah is theory, Bitachon is practice. I'm chilling, illin like a villain. The way that the Chavos HaLevavos spells it out, discusses a person is just relaxed. We're good. It doesn't matter what's happening in life. I'm okay. Yes, there are things that are challenging I have to work through, learn from them, grow from them, understand. But at the end of the day, that's bitachon. Okay, this is all intro. But I do want to tell you a story, just because I thought of the story that the Gemara says in Nidarim. For those who are studying the daily page, you'll be familiar with the Gemara called Nidarim. Now, you saw the Gemara today and Daf Mem Tes. You see tomorrow, Daf Nun? Okay, so go like this. Says the Gemara. It's tomorrow's Daf. If you're from Australia, you did it already. Anyway, so the Gemara said you did it already tomorrow. So the Gemara says a story about Rabbi Akiva. This is a well-known Gemara, a parallel Gemara in Ksuvas. On the bottom of the page, the Gemara says, the bottom of Nun Amud Aleph, it says that Rabbi Akiva became rich from 6 different ways. There's 6 different ways he became rich. They're all independent stories. He hit the jackpot 6 times. He struck gold. And in 3 of the cases, actual gold. Dinari Zav. He became mega wealthy. There's one case I want to share with you. The one case is about a matronisa. There was a noble woman. There was a woman who was a wealthy woman. And Rabbi Akiva went to ask to borrow some money. Needed some money, went to go borrow some money. And he went to go borrow some money from her. And she said, okay, I'll lend you the money, no problem. You need the money, I'm going to lend you the money. It's a lot of money, I'll lend it to you. I'll be the malve, you'll be the love, I'll be the one lending it, you'll be the borrower. And the Ran, that's what the commentary, the main commentary, on the left side of the page, right over there to the bottom left, spells out this whole storyline. The Gemara just says matronisa. The Ran spells out the whole story. So what did he say? So the Ran says that she says, I'll lend you the money, you can borrow it, but how do I know I'm going to get it back? God and the ocean will be my guarantors. Why is she saying the ocean? Because she lived right on the water. So the Lord Almighty and the ocean will do arvut. They're going to be the arevim. They're going to be the ones signing on the mashkanta. If you want to bring a little Israeli example here, right? So he says, okay, fine. He borrows the money. They set up a time when he's going to pay it back. Comes the day to pay it back, and he doesn't show up to pay it up. Rabbi Akiva, why not? He got sick. He was sick and he couldn't come. Okay, no harm, no foul, no hard feelings, but she goes out to the water and she says, Lord Almighty, we had a deal, and you are the guarantor. Days up, it's time. I get it. Rabbi Akiva can't come, he's sick. I get it. But, cash money, let's make this happen. You know what I'm saying? Let's do it. Miyad, immediately, there was a Caesar, a Caesar. Caesar had a daughter, and the daughter lost her mind, took a chest filled with margolios tovos and dinari zav, with these precious gems and gold dinarim of money, and took it and threw it into the ocean. And the ocean kept its end of the deal and brought the money straight to the woman. She took the money, said, "Thank you very much," and she went home. Now, firstly, you just get to see this woman, how she's like, "All right, God, we had a deal. Let's make it happen." And it happened. And she's like, "All right." He's like, "Thank you very much. Nice doing business with you." And she goes home. A few days later, Rabbi Akiva gets better, and he doesn't know what happened. He knows he owes the money. He feels horrible. He takes the money. He goes to pay it back, and he says, my fair lady, I apologize. Here's the cash. She says, no, it's okay. I spoke to your guarantor. It's taken care of. Huh? Yeah, I spoke to God. I spoke to the ocean. We worked it out. It's taken care of. Keep the money. He's like, okay. That's one of the ways he became rich. One of the 6 ways that he became rich. What's the point that I'm sharing this story with you for? Many perhaps have life experience of this. Perhaps some haven't yet had this life experience. They've seen this. Hashem can do anything whenever he wants in any way. You think like all avenues are closed. You tried everything. You're like, I tried doing this thing. I tried borrowing. I tried stealing. I tried borrowing while stealing. I tried everything. And I called my rich uncle twice. He doesn't answer me anymore. And what happens? The doors are closed. Nothing to talk about. And then what happens? Hashem says, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. The ocean will bring it from some Caesar's daughter. Hashem can do anything, whatever. That's bitachon, trusting. Ayad Hashem tiksar. What do you think? Hashem can't take care of something? Hashem can do anything, whatever he wants to do it. Question is if he wants to do it or doesn't want to do it, right? But emunah is theory, bitachon is practice. This is all an intro, people. This is just an intro. I'm giving a class in Hawaii a couple years ago about emunah and bitachon. And this woman comes over to me and she asks the following question. Yeah, now I know it's coming. Whenever somebody approaches me and goes, yeah, before anything started, I'm like, okay, well, where's this? Okay. Yeah, take a few steps back. Yeah, that's what you want to say? Emunah, bitachon, yeah? I said, well, yeah, I think so. I think that's what I want to say. I'm pretty sure. Is there any other particular question you'd like to share with me? She says, well, what are you going to tell? What are you going to say to my sister's husband who's sick and has a terminal illness? What are you going to say to them? What are you going to say to her? Just emunah bitachon? We're going to just have emunah, have bitachon, gamzu l'tova, kol madarachem l'tava. What are you going to say to her? And he said, what I'm going to say to her is absolutely nothing because she's not asking me anything. And even if she were to be asking me something, I also wouldn't necessarily say anything because this is a serious circumstance she's going through right now. This is very painful. For a person to be going through such a painful circumstance that their spouse is very sick or maybe they themselves are sick, for me to approach someone and talk to them when they're going through something so intense, what's going to come from that? Right? I'm saying a person's going through a really intense situation. This is what I call a what the heck situation. What the heck? I don't know what you're thinking, but heck is H-E-C. It stands for high emotional circumstance. When a person is in a what the heck, highly emotional circumstance situation, what do you say to them? The answer is you don't say anything to them. That's why when you go to a shiva house, you don't say anything to a person until they speak with you. That's when a person is angry. You don't try to go and appease them. That's when a person is making a neder. You don't try to ask them what do they mean. This is all a Mishnah Pirkei Avos. When a person is in a heck of a situation, a heck, highly emotional circumstance, you're just there. You're just there for them. Sorry, you're going through them. So it must be hard for you. I apologize. It must be difficult. I don't know why. What am I going to say to you? And what are we meant to be able to do? We are meant to be able to deal with circumstances in life. What am I meant to tell you if you're going through something? I'm so sorry you're going through something. What am I meant to tell me if I'm going through something? I'm meant to tell me, I have emunah, theory. I have bitachon, practice. I'm going to keep moving forward. I don't always understand what's going on, but at least Baruch Dayanam, you're the truthful one. I don't get it, but I understand that I know that you know more than I know. But how does a person get to that point? That's the question. That's a really nice idea. But how do we get to a point where we're able to deal with life? That's the question here. How can we get to a point where we're able to deal with it? So I want to share with you there's a holiday that, I don't know if you heard of, it's called Chanukah. And the Rambam says, what's the mitzvah of Chanukah? But what is it? What do we do? What do we be involved with? So we're lahodos lahalal. But thank the Lord. Praise and thank you, Lord. All y'all doing for me. Right? We got to thank Hashem. There's something else, something to do with the Chanukah licht. Now, the Chanukah licht, when we light the menorah, or more accurately, the Chanukiah. So forgive me if I swap it accidentally. But when we light the Chanukiah, it is something which is connected to another thing called a menorah. What's the mitzvah of the menorah? That was in the Beis HaMikdash. That was in the temple. I'm not talking about Chanukah here. I'm just talking about light the candles of menorah, right? Every day, Aaron HaKohen used to go ahead and light the candles. What was the mitzvah? So part of the mitzvah is you light the candles, but the actual part, which is considered the mitzvah, is called Hatavas Haneros. That's the idea of the preparation, setting up the candles. That's what Aaron used to do himself. He would take it out, he would switch it back, and he would set up then you go and you light the menorah. But the mitzvah is just setting it up, is preparation. It's actually setting it up and getting it ready. Ultimately, now I know people say apparently the expression is cake. I'm not sure. It depends on what the expression is. But I always had in my head like life's a piece of pie. Is that an expression? Life is a piece of pie. What's pie? Pie is Rosh Hashanah. This is an acronym for what? Prep is everything. Life's a piece of pie. It's all about preparation. Hatavas Haneros, setting up the menorah. Then it comes time, and you can light it. It's all ready to go. If anyone here has ever spent their life doing anything where you prepare something or you didn't prepare something, there's quite a difference in terms of stress level, in terms of efficiency, in terms of getting things done. There's nothing like having things ready to go. It's prepped and ready. What does it mean? How does a person get to a point where they're going to be able to deal with the challenges that may or perhaps will? Vayeshev Yaakov, as Rashi famously says, and I want to make clear for those who get lost like me, it's not the first Rashi, it's like the fifth Rashi, but it says, Bikesh Leishev B'Shalva. What happened with Yaakov Avinu? He was going through some intense stuff his whole life. Where did the fight start with Yaakov Avinu? Where did the fight start in his life? Where did it start? It started before his life. His life. I don't want to get involved in a messy debate here. It got in his lifetime. In the womb, he gets into a fight with Esav. He's fighting from before he even enters this world with his brother. Then he comes into things. So everyone just relax. You have boys that fight. It happens. It goes all into the womb. And what happened? They're fighting throughout their childhood. Then he says, I'm going to kill you, right? He says, you took my birthright, I'm going to kill you. And Yaakov says, yeah, well, I believe you. So he runs away. And then he ends up by Lavan, who tricks him. How many times? Throw in a number, anyone. 100 times. He tricks him 100 times. Rashi brings it down. 100 times that he makes Aseres Monim. 100 times over and over and over. And over and over and over and over and over and over and over. That's only 10. Over and 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 over 20. Over and over and over. He tricks him and he messes him over. And when do you mess with someone's own family? There's an expression in Israeli law that secular Israeli Jews are familiar, or even not Jews, but secular Israelis will know. It's called Birachel Bitcha HaKetana. What's Birachel Bitcha HaKetana? What does that mean? When Yaakov is going to marry, and Lavan says, well, what do you want for your working for me? He says, I want to get married to your daughter. Birachel, I want to get married to Rachel. Bitcha, your daughter. HaKetana, the younger one. We all know the Torah doesn't waste words, so why are you going out of your way to say that? Just say Rachel. Why are you saying Rachel Bitcha Ketana? You know why? Because he wants to make exceedingly clear. There's nothing here that's going to be misunderstood. In law, there's a lot of shtick that can happen. And you want to write out a contract, you have to write out a contract on the contract. It's like insane. And you got to keep pushing and make sure there's clarity. Everyone knows what's really going on. Like, oh, I thought you meant this. Who cares what you thought? What does it say? You signed it, you sealed, you delivered. Perhaps it's a song. But the point is that's what you got to do. But Rachel Bitchat means I want to marry Rachel, your daughter. Not just a Rachel from the street. They're going to pull a dream on me. They're going to give me some Rachel. Your daughter. Not just that your daughter, Rachel, that you maybe switch the names of your daughters. And you'll say Leah is now Rachel and Rachel is now Leah. Birachel, Bitcha, Hakatana, the younger one. So we know in certain terms, we know what's going on. And what does he do? He pulls a shtick anyway. I was like, oh, next morning, what? Who are you? He's loving, how could you? He's like, yo, sorry, bro. It's just what we do here, you know? No hard feelings? Now get back to work for me again. Let me just rip you off a couple more times. What? And then finally gets away, and what happens? He's Baruch Hashem, that's done with. He just has to now meet his brother again who wants to kill him. He goes to meet his brother, and his brother gives him a nice kiss on the neck with his teeth. And his neck turns to marble, and he's saved from that. And he goes through all these crazy tzaras. The guy just let the guy chill a little bit. Vayeshiv Yaakov, Beretz Migurei, Aviv Beretz Canaan. Yaakov goes to sit there. Says Rashi, like the fifth Rashi, says, Bikesh Leishev B'Shalva. He wanted to just be in just chill, just like tranquility. Boom! Joseph in the Technicolor code. Right away, he jumps the whole storyline with Yosef. He gets taken, he gets sold, and he has to go through 22 more years of this pain of not being with his son. And then finally goes and meets him. He's living in Egypt. He goes through his whole life. What's happening? Chazal are teaching us something very important. There's no such thing as Olam Hazeh, as this world, without challenges. There's going to be challenges. We're going to have challenges in this world. And those challenges, by the way, are actually good. I don't know if anyone here ever had nothing to do. You ever had some day you wake up, you have nothing to do? That's great. If you're always on and you have a day off, that's good. What about when you have 2 days off? How about 3? How about 5? How about 10? How about 16? How about 25? How about COVID? Anybody saying I would love to go back to school? I thought my kids had COVID when they said they want to go back to school. Are you sick? What do you mean you want to go back to school? You've never ever said that. Answer is, because if there's nothing to do, and even if there is something to do, there's plenty to do, you can walk backwards. You just keep walking backwards. Plenty to do. But there's got to be some struggle. There's got to be a challenge. There's got to be something I'm overcoming, that I'm solving, that I'm involved with. It wasn't a punishment to Yaakov when it says that now Yosef, the story of Yosef. It's not a punishment. Chazal are teaching us something, and that is that there's going to be challenges that are going to happen. We're going to go through this life. There are going to be challenges. How are we going to overcome the challenges? Life's a piece of pie. Prep is everything. We've got to prepare ourselves. Remember we mentioned Floyd Mayweather? We spoke about Floyd Mayweather? You heard of Floyd Mayweather? He was just here in Israel. He just came to Ish Torah 2 weeks ago. I wasn't there that day. Good thing I would have knocked him out. And the point is, the guy is a world-class boxer. If we could just go back a few years ago, because I don't want to get involved, for those who understand what I'm talking about, with some red-headed Irish fellow. I don't want to talk about that for now because it's going to get confusing. You know what his record is in boxing, professional boxing? How many wins, how many losses, how many knockouts? What's his record? 50-0. I don't understand what that means. If you know it, maybe you know Holyfield, or you know Mike Tyson, and you've heard these names before or whatever. So you think okay, the guy was a big deal, right? And it's just, yeah, but they lost. This guy went 50 fights and never lost a fight. How many fights did he lose? The answer is hundreds. Hundreds. Now, no, you just told me 6 times that he lost no fights. The answer is correct. In his professional career in the ring, he lost no fights. But do you think the guy woke up one day and he was a mathematician and said, I think I'll be a boxer? Walked in and then won every fight? Of course not. He trained and he trained and he trained and he lost and he lost and he lost and he trained and then he won, but then he lost and then it was undecided. It was called and it was back and forth and he lost and he won and then he started to win and then he started to pick up more and then he started to win and then he went professional and then he won 50 fights. The guy didn't just pick up one day and all of a sudden become the world champion. The guy liked pie. Prep is everything. He prepared himself. And he pushed himself. And he trained himself. In the event that if he were to get into the main event, that he'll win. So let me give you a little example of what it's like for some of us when we walk into a circumstance of life, when we end up in a circumstance which is challenging, which is hard, which is difficult. I'd like to share with you what that's like for some people. That's like a person who's never boxed in their life, who gets into the ring their first time ever boxing against Floyd Mayweather. What's going to happen? If anyone in this room, I don't care how tough you think you are, unless you're from Africa, but if anyone in this room, I'm messing with the Africans, if anyone in this room has never boxed, and you get into the rink with Floyd Mayweather, what do you think is going to happen? The answer is, as long as he decides to have Rahmanas. As long as he is merciful, Erech Apayim, Rav Chesed, then you'll be okay. But as soon as he decides, it's over. It's done. It's not like, oh no, now let's make it happen. You understand? It's like you go, I don't know, some people like to watch soccer, some like to play it, whatever. But say you go and you try to play against a professional basketball. What's the guy's name? If anyone knows, there's a basketball player. He was not a good NBA player, but he was in the NBA. Scully, I think. Scully something or other. This guy barely made it off the bench when he played in the National Basketball Association. A professional basketball player. To play in the NBA, he's got to be quite talented. I mean, really good. Really, really. It's not just you wake up, I think I'll play for the NBA. Like, it doesn't work like that. You've got to be you've got to be really, really good. Many players get drafted, so there's really good, in other words, where you hit the top 10 percentile of the world, but then there's the top 1 in the world that you're playing against. So you could be drafted to a team and never actually get on the court. You're part of the team, and they let you on if they're down by 40 or if they're up by 1,000. But they don't let you on. This guy was like a sixth man. Like he made it sometimes, whatever it is. But he got a lot of slack, a lot of like hate mail, like, yo, why are you even in the NBA? Like, I could beat you with my eyes closed. So he created a challenge when this guy retired. And he went out there and he let people from Division 1 is the highest? Yeah, Division 1? He took applications from around the United States of kids that played in Division 1 basketball. That's like the level right before you'll be drafted to the NBA. They're all coming from that level. I think there's Division 3, Division 2, Division 1. And then you get into the NBA. If you get drafted, you get picked. So that means if you're in Division 1, you're already in the upper percentile of the entire country. And he said, you guys can all play against me one-on-one. I'll pick some people. And he picked them. And he was already in his mid to late 30s, which is very old in the world of the NBA. He was already in the mid to late 30s. And these kids were 18, 19, 20, 21 who were like they were ready to go. He played against them. How many of them do you think beat him? This guy was a low-level NBA player. He made it to NBA. He barely played. He had like an average of like 12 points over his career, 10 points, whatever. The guy, whatever. So how many people do you think beat him? The answer is 0. Nobody came close. He destroyed them. Because he's so phenomenally good. He could play games with them. He let them shoot around a little bit, then he would just go God mode on them. He would just destroy them. He's on another level. And he was the lower level of these people, right? Now you get against the higher level of these people. Yeah, how long are you going to be in the game? As long as they let you. But as soon as they want to destroy you, it's over. That's because we haven't trained it all. Now we go through a life circumstance. Something happens to us. We go through some sort of challenge. And when the challenge happens, we're like, oh, I don't know how to deal with this. What's going on? And the girl in Hawaii says to me, no, you're going to tell my sister whose husband is going through this massive challenge and she's going through this challenge. What am I going to say? I'm going to say nothing. What I'm going to say to you, you better start training. You better start prepping. Because prep is everything. The only way we're able to deal with those circumstances when we're dealing with it is we've got to prep ourselves for that. What does that mean? We have opportunities to prep ourselves all the time. All the time. How does a person becoming a boxer become a boxer? He goes in there and he's just showing how to hold his hands. Just how do you hold them? Like how do you hold your body? Like what do you do exactly? Like where do you put your thumb? Like what's happening? Yeah, let me just show you what. So then you practice just doing this. And then you practice getting in position. Then you practice, and I'm going to stop thinking I even know what I'm doing. But I'm saying, slowly but surely, you practice and you practice and you practice. And you prep and you prep and you prep and you get ready, you get ready, you get ready. And then if a situation comes, then it's just a natural byproduct of everything you've been prepping for. The fight itself is a joke compared to the prep that goes into the fight. There's so much more of a challenge to actually prepare yourself than to actually go through the real challenge. The challenge is just, I got it, now I can be able to overcome that challenge. That, my friends, is one of the deepest lessons we can learn from Chanukah. Hatavas haneros. Prep. The one who preps themselves, then when they get in the ring, it may be a fight. Sometimes it could be a fight, but you'll be okay. You'll be all right. The one who doesn't prep themselves and then is surprised. I don't understand why I lost. What happened? It's all about prep. Making sure that we're taking the steps to actually get there. Hashem doesn't give a person a test they can't handle. We can handle it. We're able to handle it. Now, everything I just said is good and dandy, but what about those who didn't prep? What about now? Okay, that is great advice for the future. But what about practically right now in that case? The answer is I can't say anything. What the heck? Highly merciful circumstance. I'm sorry going through it. Must be difficult. I'm going to try to support you and love you and hug you and hold you and it'll be great. If it's a woman, we'll put a mechitza and we'll, whatever. But I'm saying, like, what am I supposed to do? So that's where we understand understand something so incredibly important. Emunah, I'm going to say something a certain way, but emunah is not something that we build. Emunah is something that we uncover. We have it, it's there. And the goal is to uncover it layer by layer. Which means it's there. We have the ability and potential. And that's why you hear stories galore of people that had no connection with their Judaism. They never prepared anything, and they're put in serious circumstances, and they were able to overcome it. How? Because they're able to tap into that concept. Is it easy? No. A lot easier if we were meichin, if we were involved with hachana and prep. But it can be done. My point is, hope isn't lost. If a person hasn't yet uncovered that concept and they haven't yet prepped, understand that we have ways of reaching very high heights very quickly. There's kedusha that exists, and tapping into that. Well, like I said, that's not what we hope. That's ein somchen alanes. We don't rely on those ideas. What we rely on is when we push ourselves and we do the steps that are necessary in order to get there. And that's by building, day by day, circumstance by circumstance, situation by situation, slowly but surely, until I learn to then take the step. I learn how to take a punch. I learn how to block. I learn how to defend. I learn how to move around. I learn how to get, be light on my feet, whatever it may be. And then before you know it, you're able to go ahead and handle the fight. Hatavas haneros. Making sure that we prep ourselves. Unfortunately, one of the biggest challenges that we have in life is that we just get used to things and we just kind of go with it without really thinking about what's happening during the stages when we can be training. We're meant to be training all the time. We're meant to be doing things with active thought, not passively moving through, but active decision making. But we get used to just living our life. We're just kind of, okay, this holiday comes, we do this one comes, we do that, this one, we do the other. I want to share with you this last idea. When is it that we light the menorah? Now, when we start lighting the menorah, I'm not getting into that. Let the rabbi give a whole share. Shkia, sof shkia, tchila shkia, middle shkia, shkia, shkia. Something to do with shkia. We light the menorah. Let's say I didn't get a chance to light the menorah by shkia, by sof shkia, by middle shkia, by beginning shkia, by the quad shkia. How do I? So okay, so now it's like shkia is at I don't know what it's here. I knew Yerushalayim is like 4:40. I guess it's similar, right? So 4:40-ish. And what happens is the person goes, they light, someone to 4:40, 5 o'clock, whatever. What happens if you didn't light at 5 o'clock? You're at work, you come back, it's already 7 o'clock, it's already 8 o'clock, it's already 9 o'clock. Until when do we go ahead and light the menorah? Good. Ad shetichla regel min hashuk. This is the lashon of the Gemara. And Shulchan Aruch brings down, Ad shetichla regel min hashuk. What does that mean? Ad shetichla regel min hashuk means we light the menorah. Now there's a double thing going on. The menorah is for us personally and Persume Nisa, right? It's for outside, it's for inside, which is why we like the menorah outside. Anyone who grew up outside of, I don't know what you guys do, I just know I like the menorah outside. Barring any halachic questions of what's your chatzer, what's the beginning, where's the front, where's the end, what do you own, what don't you own, Vadabayit yelling at you, whatever. You know, but you try to go to America and explain, the Vadabayit's yelling at me. Like, what are you talking about, right? So in America, we always lit inside. In New York, we always lit inside. Why do we light inside? Because it's freezing outside. That's like one of the main reasons. It's like we slept in the sukkah. No, we slept inside. It was just cold, you know? So someone's going to steal it, you know, anti-Semitism, Eva, all different things. But that was a reason you wouldn't do it in your window. You're saying, like, no, I don't light outside because of anti-Semitism. I just do it in my window for them to see. Right? So, okay, so if that's the reason, so you don't do it there. Fine. We got to double it. But the idea of Ashtichel Regel Minashuk is that you do it until people are no longer walking in the market, right? Because if you have to pursue Nimisa, what time is that at? I don't know. Figure that out. But let's say 11 o'clock at night. Maybe if you live on a main street, it's later. If you live in a private street, it's earlier. Whatever it may be, comes along. I believe it was a Sfas Emes, I think. And if it wasn't, I apologize. It was somebody else who says the following. What does that mean? It means Ad shetichla regel is a lashon of regilut or hergel, until we end and finish. Tichla is lashon kala. Kala means finished, annihilated, done. We say it every day, kilo chalu rachamecha, right? Which means that it's not finished and over in modim. And you sing it maybe. It means until it's finished and over. Ad shetichla regel means Ad shetichla hergel. Until we get rid of our just doing things by rote without really thinking. So we put it into two succinct ideas. Number one is the hatavas haneros, preparing what you're doing. Prepare, get ready, think about that. And keep doing that. How much did you do it for? 8 crazy nights. Why 8 crazy nights? Well, 7 we know is the world of teva, of nature. And the goal is to be above nature. Get to nature. When you just get to nature, you've just hit teva, you've just hit hergel. That's the level of just doing things because you do it. The goal is to go one step beyond that. And to do things with focus and with meaning, with paying attention to what we're doing. And a person who does it with focus and meaning and paying attention to what we're doing, that's when we start the process of preparation. We started by atavas haneros, and we push it through by making sure tichla hergel. We get rid of this concept of just doing things by rote. And the more we do that, we shouldn't know any challenges. Amen. However, if we do find ourselves in those challenges, we will have fortified ourselves to be able to deal with the circumstance on a level not only of emunah, but even bitachon. Any questions, comments, stories, jokes, attacks? Please give them verbal and physical. Yeah. Well, it's a great question. You never, people say, expect the unexpected. Right? You heard that? That doesn't make sense by definition. If you expect it, then it wasn't unexpected. You cannot expect the unexpected. It's more so, the real line is accept the unexpected. Be willing to accept reality of life and then be able to decide how you're going to deal with that. What is called the prep? The prep that I'm referencing is that as we go through life, we go through many challenges all the time. The big challenges, that's sometimes overwhelming. But I was talking with a student tonight about this. What's the difference between a brick house that's 2 or 3 stories and the Empire State Building? The Empire State Building has more bricks. Now, yes, you have to build a foundation a little bit deeper. But ultimately, if you kept building your house, you'd reach the Empire State Building. There's nothing that's big in this world. It's just a lot of small things repeated. So how does a person prepare themselves? We train ourselves in the small things that seem to be a little insignificant, or maybe that are a little bit more, and those are the areas where you say, oh my gosh, how am I going to deal with it? You don't say that. Like, it's a person gets stuck in traffic. They go, I don't even know how I'm going to deal with this. Why, God? And there are people that do that, right? But most people don't go that extreme, right? What they say is like, it's so frustrating, I'm in traffic. This is a training opportunity. This is training. How you're going to deal in the very small circumstances. And the more that we work on dealing in the small circumstances, of accepting the unexpected. God, I didn't want this to be. I accept the fact that this is what you want to be. Okay, I'm going to move forward from this. I don't know why this is good, but they say what you do is good. Happens a second time, a third time, a fourth time, then it starts to become easy to start saying that. What happens when it reaches the next level? It's not traffic, but someone's hit your car. God, I didn't really want that to happen, but I accept the fact that for whatever reason you wanted that to be, I'm taking this guy to court. Let's be clear here. Nobody said you should just be walked over, but you don't have to do it angry. You don't have to get into a fight. You don't have to go nuts. Bring your evidence, bring it to court, and take care of business. If something else happens like that, a second time, a third time, then it becomes easy. Then there's another brick. Then there's another brick. Then there's another brick. Then there's another brick. And again, my goal is not to share with you, you will have many bricks in your life. But understand, Bikesh Leisha B'Shalva, Rashi is telling us that this is the world. Adam la'amal yulad. We are here in order to toil, in order to grow, to overcome the challenges. So therefore, the prep is in the very small experiences that we start getting used to those ideas and overcoming them. And then when another brick comes up, we're able to go ahead and build on that idea. There's something called theory and practice, right? So we spoke about Emunah B'Tachon. The theoreticals of this, what I just shared with you is a practical application in small doses. The theoretical application of this would be, in a nutshell, I want to recommend if you'd like to join my book reading club. I started a book, I started reading it 75 days ago. It's called The Path of the Just. It just came out 300 years ago. It just came out about 300 years ago. It's got rave reviews. And over there, the Nesil Sisharim, the Rachal writes about how different steps that have to be taken, which are based off a brisa found in Avodah Zarah, I think in Daf Chaf, starting off with the idea of Zehirus, moving on to Zrizas, moving on to Nikios, moving on to Precious, and there's a step-by-step, it's quite literally a guidebook on how to become a human being. It's pretty amazing. The challenge is you really have to read it, number one, and the second challenge is you really got to do something about it. And that's why the Ramchal writes famously in the introduction, reading this book one time is not going to do anything for you. Because that's not what it's about. It's not about reading a book. It's a manual on how to live your life and how to deal with it. So the first one we say is the concept of zehirus, being vigilant, being careful, watching for my behavior and what I'm doing and not. Essentially an idea of cheshbon and nefesh, evaluating how I'm living my life. Working that through. And then as we go, that's the theoretical of your driving exam. Then you have the practical, you get behind the wheel. Getting behind the wheel, usually circumstances that occur daily. If you're married, multiple times daily. Enough about me. But the point is there will be challenges that are going to arise. And to be able to overcome those, if you have children, if you have a business, if you're working, if you have any neighbors, if you are human and you are alive, you will have those. So number one is the concept of reading through these ideas, thinking about them, being mechashbein, thinking through, cheshbon hanefesh, being real with yourself, and then putting it into actual practical application one brick at a time. Heavy question, fascinating question, and I'll share with you the following idea. There's a famous concept and idea known as anecdotal evidence, right? So I saw this happen, therefore it must be. For example, I've run across the street many times without getting hit by a car. It must be that it's okay and safe to run across the street and I'll be all right. The answer is no, you're just really lucky, right? I saw a person play roulette and put all his money on one color and he won. Must be that that's a normal thing to do. The answer is no, that's a very silly thing to do. It just happened to be that it worked out for you. Now let's take a look at the opposite example of that. I saw a person in a circumstance, in a situation, a test, and they didn't pass that test. Must be they weren't able to pass the test. Now forgive me if I misunderstood the question, but that's what I was hearing a little bit. That we see circumstances that people are put through, and we see that those people aren't passing this test. Seemingly, God knows they're not on that level to deal with it, and yet he gave it to them anyway. How does this work? There's a lot of presumptions that went into that sentence, right? And that is, I don't know you, you don't know me. I don't know my own wife. I don't know my own children. What do I mean by that? We don't know what, we more or less know certain things, but you don't know. You ever been shocked by somebody who you knew and they did something you couldn't believe, positive or negative? You don't know what someone can really handle and can't really handle. The only one that can know, there's only two that can handle. The only one that really is Hashem, and the only other one that possibly is the person themselves. So really this question can only be asked personally. In other words, if you yourself were to be saying, I have been in tests that I was not able to pass. If that was a sentence that was being said, I would say that is a good discussion to be had. And now the question is that true? In other words, has there ever been a scenario where you've been in a situation and you failed, and then been in that situation again and you passed, and then been in a situation and you failed? What's the difference? Of course, there's no exact scenario, right? There's always going to be nuances. But there's a more or less situation and circumstance that occurs, and yet we see that what? We are able to pass certain things, but maybe we don't push ourselves enough. Maybe we're not really going and really trying and pushing as much as we're able to really do. But what if it happens to be that a person is put in a particular test and it sees that they really thought they tried as much as they can and still they failed? What about then? So assuming that exists, then we have another idea in Judaism called Anas Rachmana Patre. It becomes irrelevant. What does it mean that a person will never be given a test that he can't handle? What it means is that if I give you a test, that means you could overcome this one. And if you don't overcome it, so then there's responsibility and accountability. If you do, then there's reward and you'll be taken care of. What happens if I don't pass it? I wasn't able to pass it. Then guess what? There's no accountability because Anas Rachmana Patre. If for whatever reason a person is really not able to handle it, then that means you're off the hook. Anas means something beyond the person's control. Rachmana, the merciful one meaning Hashem. Patre, you're exempt. You're nullified. It's fine. So either you could have done it and you didn't, or you're off the hook anyway. You understand? Those are the two tzadim that are happening over here. And that's what I mean to say, to try to move away from what could someone else have done, because we don't really know. But the one thing we do know a little is what we can do, and to constantly be taking the steps to be able to overcome these challenges. Okay, my friends, I want to wish all y'all a happy Chanukah. Have an amazing, enlightening Chanukah. Thank you so much, and a good Nacht.